the Bird Center of the Arts. Thank you for joining us. We are honored to host this event in the newly reopened Arts Center. My name is Sandy Thomas. I will be your host for the Tough Old Broads Poetry Read, featuring Ann Menebroker, Victoria Dalkey, Kathryn Hohlwein, and Viola Weinberg. Our first reader is Ann Menebroker. Ann Menebroker was born in Washington, D.C., and spent her childhood in Arlington, Virginia, before making her way to Sacramento. She has been involved with the Sacramento Poetry Center since its genesis, and her works are archived in the Sacramento Room of the Sacramento's Central Library. She has authored more than 20 collections of poetry during the last 50 years, including Tiny Teeth, R.L. Crow, Sunscreen in the Fog, Bottle of the Smoke Press, and The Measure of Small Gratitudes, published in Sweden by the Community Press. Her work has also been widely anthologized, including selections in the Outlaw Bible of American Poetry, edited by Alan Kaufman and S.A. Griffin, and in the college textbook, Literature and Its Writers, edited by Ann and Samuel Charters. She has collaborated with artists and other poets on numerous projects in Sacramento, including taking part in the Mimeo Revolution with Joyce Odom. In the late 1970s, Ann edited and published Impulse, a poetry magazine printed on an IBM Selectric. In the 1980s, she and Martha Ann Blackman published Watching from the Sky, an anthology featuring poems defining peace and ecological awareness. In 2006, Ann was one of the featured poets in the Sacramento documentary I Began to Speak. And her portrait can be found on the 9 of Hearts in the Poets on Deck, playing cards featuring many of Sacramento's prominent poets. She's also recognized as one of the leading women writers of the male-dominated, no apologies offered and none needed group known as Meat Poets. About Ann, Gerald Laughlin wrote, "She is one of those heroines who persevere in their poetry simply because it is what they were born to do." Wilma McDaniel was another. And they turn their lives into lines that resemble no one's other than their own. Please welcome Ann Menebroker.
Please call me Annie. I'm just going to pretty much start reading. I'm so glad to see family and friends and faces I haven't known before. And this room is so packed, it's blowing my mind. It really is. We all thank you so much. We Tough Old Broads, we're going to do this in September. We didn't make it. Now we're back in June, and we're doing the thing. And I'm glad Viola is here to read with us Tough Old Bitches. Broad! I like to start out by using a few quotes from other poets, very small. Quentin Duval was a much-loved poet in our community. And I found just a couple of lines out of a couple of poems in his posthumous book, by Kay, that I thought was perfect to start this with. Here we are. And what are you going to do about it? Plenty, the saying goes. The other one is, I made my life here out of stick and wire, and it works like a dream. And last of all, Sandy mentioned Wilma Elizabeth McDaniel. who was an Oklahoma poet who came out here with her sharecropper dad in 1936. She was 17 years old. I don't think she had much of a formal education, but she was already writing poetry when she got to California. She was 17 years old in 1936. And there's a very small poem of hers I just love. It's titled Picking Grapes, 1937. Working in bursting vineyards, hot sand on sole, one shoulder strap held by a safety pin. A girl could be whatever vintage she desired. The first breath of Eve, the last gasp of Jean Harlow. And I thought the poem that might follow that is not usual for me. It's more of a prose poem, it's a mood piece, and of course it's on a cotton farm. After midday supper. The family, after supper, gathers on the warped porch on a Sunday afternoon to watch the cars go by. It gets them through the rest of the day wondering who it was, where they were going. This becomes a distraction from tomorrow's field work, picking row after row of cotton, or a slight shift of weather can send them worrying about rain. What if they can't get out to the fields? There's not much time to get the job done. Then the hill folks go home, and then the field folks go home, while the family sweats over the books and the debts and 100 acres of land they partially own. The kids think of going away to Michigan to put cars together. A better life than they have here, on the land where the river and its limits own their possible future. This one's just called Warming. I have several poems that have to do with rivers and water, and McKinney Park gets in here a couple of times. And this one, actually, I was with Kathryn, and it was written probably 2 or 3 years ago. She'll remember it. Warming. Here in Sacramento's old park on Alhambra Boulevard, we sit and talk. The Clooney pool is still empty, and we remember Victoria's poems about it. The muddy green pond floats its ducks and geese. We sit beside a man playing his guitar. This late winter pleasure floats in our heads, breaking through memory as disturbed as the pond's murky bottom. You tell me a story about being in another country, how you and a man chased a rainbow and stood in it, but it kept shifting ahead of you. You couldn't keep the gold of the moment except now in remembering. Far from where we talk, a huge shelf of ice falls into the ocean as we watch the ripples in the water. Everybody hear all right way back there? I hope so. This one's just called Marble. Imagine the curve of light in space, or the rim of the sun, the orange line of sunset. Look at the moon to see the full range of its violet whiteness. Watch the glass floor shaping the roundness of its art. Your eyes are the shape of the earth and the size of walnuts. hold a marble in your hand. Something about being round deserves touching, as if its shape could go in all directions, but actually goes nowhere and everywhere. Put the marble in your mouth. It will kiss you. I think it's summer officially now. So this is a baseball poem, and it was, I've read it before, and I like baseball. So I'm going to read it again. For Joe DiMaggio. For a long time, baseball has been a boy's dream. And spring is time to be kissed away. Because the grass smells good, is tall enough to cut down. His mitt is oiled and fits him like a pattern of his leanest knee. Something he starves for. But the regulators for a busy life tell him, the game's too slow. The heroes are no longer on the mound, at bases, or in the field. You could build a small village by the top of the 9th inning. And extra innings are torture. But he still believes in the game. He believes in the pitcher's magic, the hitter's power, the catcher's technique, the umpire's calls. In his dream, it's a 7th inning and the crowd knows all the words to the song. The bat boy is so full of joy, he trips on home plate. This one came about, it's fairly new. I had a friend that was telling me that a mockingbird out in the yard was keeping her up every night. It was driving her nuts. It wasn't a pretty song. So I got a poem out of it. Mockingbird on Clothesline. The mockingbird sang his song almost until the sun came up. Until the lady of the house pulled pillows over her head, trying to silence him. It was mating season. He wasn't about to lose his place in line. The next day, as she hung her wash on the line, he sang in the early afternoon. She could picture him hanging by a wing with a clothespin holding him firm. And she hung up her towels and shirts and blue jeans. But it was a cruel sort of daydream. So she bought earplugs for the evening. And even in her dreams, she could hear the songs over and over again. There was no deep meaning here, just irritation and sleeplessness and passion returned to repetition. This one's fairly new too. It just came out in an anthology in Australia, and it had to be about Arthur Rimbaud, and so that's what I wrote about. Mapping and charting. Rimbaud, I can't find you. Amazon has great deals on your history. The shark smells blood. It's difficult to stay drunk and amazed all the time. I have put chunks of raw meat on the hook of time. The river tells me, go to the ocean. I don't think you'll be there. Upstairs where I live, they're dragging bodies across the floor. My wrecked heart brings disaster. Rimbaud, I have waited so long to find you. In the mystery of hope and the misery of doubt, I'll find a way to explain this journey. I've only got 2 poems left. This time is going quicker than I thought. This next one is completely different. It's in couplets. It's 5 couplets, and I don't necessarily have to tell you what it means because I don't necessarily know, but it was fun to write. The salesman. The dreams were filled with huge houses, rooms to be lost in, deserts of space, promising to identify the corner he came from. Outside, winter teased the weather with late warmth, an early chill to awaken by, and a furnace that had no language. 2 summers ago, he smashed an insect on the bedroom screen window. For now, it is a transparent shell no one has taken down. The graphics of life are visually beautiful and can be moved around like a dancer in the arms of make-believe and can change into armies. Someone has come to the door, and he brings no answers, but he carries a briefcase filled with mouths, and they are singing silent songs. Thank you, and I'm going to end with another river poem. It came from so many things. Allison Seconds, Kevin Seconds' wife, musician, takes a lot of photographs along the river, goes there almost every day. And on Facebook, she has some fantastic photographs. And some of them are the skeletons of animals and fish that she finds on the shoreline. And some of these are from friends of mine, Martha Ann Blackman, all of you. It's incorporated with everything I feel about life. Oh no, that isn't the one. Okay, I knew I had to make a mistake. Well, that's what I say about the last poem. This one is a quick one. In April, but the 4 of us are trying to stay healthy and well so we can make it to June 22nd. And here we are. And Kathryn fell in April, and then about a week or 2 later I fell. She fell on concrete, I fell in dirt. And so I got a poem out of my fall. And I was walking with my friend Mary Zephyr in McKinley Park, and I actually fell right on my face. I got dirt in my mouth. And so that's what this is about. And then I'll read the last poem, but I'm not going to go on and on about it again. A mouthful of dirt and hallelujah in a Leonard Cohen kind of way. For Mary Zephyr. In the slow falling down to earth, so much is happening. A woman runner is turning away from this clumsy walker who has chosen to kiss the root she tripped on. Her walking friend has put out an arm to grab air as the body tilts down in a lazy, spring-blooming kind of way. Not one duck or goose has paid attention. The traffic goes on the same in the pond. Blessed are the trippers and the grabbers. Blessed is time that stands a little quieter. Sacred the grit in her mouth. Okay, here's the last one. It's called Music and Life on the River. Now you remember everything I said. This river moves so slowly, it never seems to go anywhere at all. It's not as if anyone can find inspiration here. Yet, if someone loves you like this river moves, you don't have to impress or speak in tongues. It's a slow, melodious song backed up by the sweep of wind through sticks and leaves. The standard here is long-lasting. Nothing gets lost that can't be found again. And the fish grow fat from the handouts. Dead critters on shore turn to instant beauty. They have left their bones to form art in layers of dirt and moss. I saw a man playing violin sitting in a tree branch. It was foggy, and he kept having to tune the strings. This river, if you listen, sings a song on its journey. And the song ends up maybe in Mexico or Brazil. And the river pretends it doesn't know anything about the journey. But it's all there. Thank you so very much.
One more round of applause for Ann. All right, so Victoria Dalkey. Victoria Dalkey is a fourth-generation Californian and Sacramento native who lives in the city of her birth with her husband, painter Fred Dalkey. She's the Sacramento Bee's art critic and the author of the catalog essays on Wayne Thiebaud, Manuel Neary, Charles Eckhart, Sheila Sullivan, Michael Tompkins, and other California artists. Her poems have appeared in Abraxas, Bakunin, Birmingham Poetry Review, the Cimarron Review, Thule Review, the Sacramento Anthology 100 Poems, edited by Dennis Schmitz and Viola Weinberg, and Late Peaches, Poems by Sacramento Poets, edited by Bob Stanley. She's the author of 3 chapbooks, Map of the Pearl with Kay Lindsay, 29 Poems, Red Wing Press, and In the Absence of Silver, Rattlesnake Press. In 2001, she collaborated with composer Gilda Tappet on Sub Rosa, a suite of poems set to music for guitar and soprano that was performed at the CSUS Festival of New American Music. She also performed with the Camellia Symphony and composer George Rockford, and on Poets Live on KVMR Radio in Nevada City. Please welcome Victoria Dalkey.
Thank you so much. It's just amazing to see this many people here. I'm just thrilled. I'm not going to say a lot about my poems because I hope they speak for themselves. But I'm going to start with a poem about an art book that my husband owns called Albinus's Anatomy. It's a wonderful book because the skeletons in the book have been posed in various landscapes. There's even one with a rhinoceros. It's really surreal. And so I want to read this little poem about it. Anatomy lesson, the skeleton. Who is this raw-boned, gravel-boned, slimsy fellow strolling through the picnic grounds? Bare-boned, bag of bones, striking an elegant pose, rack-a-bones, rattle-bones, phalanges clicking, backbone ticking, gray and grinning, gangle-shanks, giggle-bones, worn to a shadow, worn to the bones. Imagine your skeleton in a northern light, in a freezing cold barn in the lowlands, laid out on a table heaped with snow, then strung up from the ceiling with ropes and pulleys to look like a traveler in a melancholy landscape.
the pale inevitable, wandering in a pastoral setting, pausing by a stone mausoleum, a huge tomb set down among trees, vines, a rivulet, a stairway of waterfalls, pining for a woman in a red skirt, peasant blouse tied up under her breasts, brown waist bared, the skin soft, the girdle of muscles supple around the rib cage, vertebrae dimpled down the spine like a string of pearls. I'll stand up here. This next poem is called Well-Known Tea. It's a poem about an experience that my husband and I have. He's quite a tea fancier. Searching for our favorite tea at Ho Chi Minh Market, my husband held up an unfamiliar package. Well-known tea, he said. That must mean it's famous. Are you sure? I asked, knowing how tricky translation can be. It might mean common tea or everyday tea. Turned out I was right. Like the politician on the stump, the tea is characterless. Its only virtue, cheapness. It didn't have the good dirt taste of pu'er, earthy as beets, or the smoky smell of lapsang souchong filling our nostrils with memories of burning leaves in October. It lacked the tender clarity of pale iron goddess of mercy, soother of raw nerves. Centuries ago in Yunnan, south of Cloud Mountain, the golden buds and soft green leaves of the province's famous tea were plucked by maidens, fed on a diet devoid of strong flavors that might linger on their fingertips, tainting the delicate taste of a liquid meant to be sipped while contemplating the beautiful foolishness of things. We thought of how things were and how they are, and tasted the well-known tea, which turned out to be good enough after all. This next poem is dedicated to Wayne Thibault. It's called Bong Pei, which is the art of making miniature landscapes with found materials and paper mache and so forth. Bong Pei. I look through the window of your spacious bungalow and see you again, an ordinary man. You are working head bent over the table on a model of the Delta. Green felt fields, furrows of dried clay, mazy, mirror-shard rivers that come to a point at the whipped paper sea. You place a tiny Chinese farmer near a row of scallions snipped from pale green plastic. The light over your head casts deep red shadows on the world before you. It is cold on the porch where I stand. My teeth chatter against the glass. You come out and lay a warm finger on my blue lips. This next poem is about one of my favorite pieces of music, Bach's Double Concerto in D minor. Listening to Bach's Double Concerto in D minor, you understand why he had so many children. The big chords of the opening, fat and dark, heavy as your husband's balls in your hand, making love in summer. All the weight of his being concentrated in the soft, loaded, lightly furred, moist heat of the testes you hold tenderly, kneading the jewels inside. Does the small boy know as he practices his scales, testicles tucked up tight to his body, the joy he will feel one day as he plays after the vivace, the largo? Does he sense in his tentative scrapings how the bow will fall on the strings, largo, ma non tanto, exciting them as the lining of a woman's uterus is excited by the sight of her lover? In the coming together, the moving forward, the call and response of the strings, they are gathered together, the father of 20 children, the small boy practicing his scales, the woman who is both mother and lover, in the pure, sexual music of praise. This next poem is about a table that I was going to bring this table here today to sit our water on, but Sandy offered to bring this stool, so I didn't have to bring it. It's called Charmin' Billy. I don't know where to put the beat-up table I can't part with because my father painted it. Can't find the right place for this half moon with 3 squat legs joined by pegs. Something out of a tale about a girl held prisoner by a dwarf, forced to spin straw into gold. Or the one about the princess locked in a tower until she let her hair down. Daddy was handsome as a prince that day, whistling, "Can she bake a cherry pie, Billy boy," as he covered the table with a green, dark as the deepest pines in the forest, long before I guessed his real name. And this next poem is called Finding Mother. When she's gone, you remember her through your pores, the scent of her breath as she held you close on the pillows of her breasts. You remember her breasts gone, cut away, the wound terrifying, the absence of dark eloquence, her silence as you emptied the drain, the lymph like pale tomato juice. You remember her later in the rest home, you sitting on her bed, feeding her, she nauseated from the painkillers, saying, "Don't rock the boat." You remember the cancer eating her bones, her one breast flaccid, deflated, and lonely. You touch the place where your breast used to be, feel the folds and crevices of the deep, jagged scar, slashed over your rib cage, the numbness under your arm, the memory of the wound in the mirror, and then you know a little more about your mother. My son Emil, who brought his PA system here today, and his girlfriend Tara, and they set it up. And this poem takes place when he was about 5 years old. So he's 45 now, so you know that was a long time ago. And it's a garden poem. It's that time of year. The yard-long beans. The yard-long beans wound themselves around taut strings to the top of the green stick frame we built to tame them, and rioted for 2 months, purple blossoms out each morning, tiny shoots set under the moon each night. Hungry for green, we picked them each day, too soon sometimes, tender and boneless as baby fingers. So Emil at 5 complained and wouldn't eat them, so soon snatched, tangled from the vine, and fried with pork and garlic. We ate till sated with green, and still they came, riding in on themselves, pencil slim, dark, arm-long beans, dangling from the heart-strung strings. August over, we forgot them, passed them for late tomatoes, red at last, fat as breasts, and warm in our hands. And for seductive eggplant, midnight skinned, white-fleshed, and sliced for frying, fragrant as green apples. Even Emil forgot to go out in the evening and braid the vines in and out the strings and urge the beans on. But tonight he remembered. I heard him call and I went out to the frame, collapsed on itself. The boy holding up a stringer of beans that had grown too far inside the vine to reach. They were yellow and knotted as an old cigar smoker's fingers and long as the boy's legs. The fallen vine rattled in the wind as Emil brushed an ant from his arm and said more than once, "I'm sorry, Mother." There's been a lot in the news lately about violence towards women during warfare. And this is a poem that I wrote at the time of the Bosnian conflict back in 1992 to 95, I think it was. It's called His Favorite. All morning, Ina, I have been thinking of you, hoping you are wandering in paradise, whatever paradise is for you. I keep wanting to place you in a Persian miniature, cool as sherbet in a mint green gown, walking in a landscape of palace gardens lined with gold. in gardens evenly dotted with small explosions of wildflowers and leaping gazelles. I hope you are there with the prince who loves you, under a crescent moon hung in the dark blue sky, scattered with stars even in daytime. I hope your body has been restored, that your bruises and cuts are healed, that your skull blasted away has reformed. But in truth, Ina, I don't know what paradise would be for you. Perhaps a bowl of hot soup and a piece of bread, eaten in peace with your family, and then an uneventful stroll through the park. Maybe a trip to Euro Disney, or a day in Dubrovnik before the war began. Whatever it is, I wish it for you. But I know that your body still lies hidden deep in the Bosnian forest, your body and the bodies of your sisters. Indicted for war crimes in Sarajevo, he recites their names: Amela and Nisa, Alma and Nisa, Meira and Sarah. But you, Ina, you were his favorite, he says. The man who raped you, marched you into the woods and shot you in the back of the head. He didn't enjoy it, he says, raping you and your sisters, raping you with his brothers in a gang, taking turns until they were all done. He didn't enjoy it, yet you were his favorite. What does that mean? Were you the prettiest? Did you wear a red shawl? Were your hands pushing him away, soft and warm on his skin? Did you stare at him until he turned and exchanged a human glance? Was your beauty so perfect that, like Beatrice, one glimpse of your face could change a man's life? Pale and frightened, that's how he described you. A pale and frightened 17-year-old. Your face comes to him every day, Ina. Pale, frightened, alive, and his favorite. I just have two more poems. So this last one is a poem that I wrote for a young artist who died. It's called Crows for Tom Philippe. Outside, dissident crows flap tarry wings, puff up oiled feathers, then settle down, sleek projections complicating the geometry of trees. One struts, head jutting on stiff neck as he paces, marshalling strays, calling out crude orders. A few shoot out from branches like black yo-yos on invisible strings. Inside, the high window in the dining room becomes a mirror, a blinding band of light you can't look into or at. Something is moving, but I can't see it. Blinded by sun, limbs stiff with inertia, I listen to it moving under the light, vaguely westward with the crows. The phone rings. A young woman, crying, tells me a painter whose last show I didn't see is dead, killed on the road somewhere near Point Arena. Can I write about it, she asks, explain the importance of his life and death. I say I'll do what I can, knowing I can't do anything, can't revise his life or transform his death, can't give him his last review, can't find any words to help her, can't even find the meaning of the crows in this poem I keep writing in the dark. And I want to close with a poem that's on a lighter note, called Reading a Used Book of Poems by John Crow Ransom. Reading a used book of poems by John Crow Ransom, I savored the smear of a chocolate thumbprint on the last stanza of a song in which two spectral lovers touch fingers that flutter like a bird whose song shall never be heard. Linger over the splatter of spaghetti sauce on the page where, full of long white arms and milky skin, a man remembers 1,000 sins. Run my finger over the round, raised, thickened spot where a drop, tear, or spittle fell on the noon apple dreams of the scuttling geese John Whiteside's daughter chased. How I long to touch this lover of dark chocolate, Italian food, and tart, succulent words. I follow his spoor, keen as the leaping borzoi on the book's blue cover. sniffing for traces of musk along white streams meandering through the dark forest of barbed marks. But only the thick yellow odor of old books lingers. It is late. The sheets are cold, dog-eared. I slip myself under the covers. Toes curled, I dream of pears, sinuous bosks in plain brown wrappers, and you in your kitchen, years from now, reading this poem in a used book.
Right, wow. That's a big wow. Let's have one more round of applause. For Victoria Dalkey. Kathryn Hohlwein was born and raised in the Rocky Mountains in Salt Lake City. She graduated from the University of Utah, majoring in English and French, and received her MA from the Breslov School of English. She studied philosophy at Rennes, Bretagne in France, and Spanish at the University of Santander in Spain. She later moved to Lebanon, where she taught literature at the Beirut College for Women. Kathryn went on to teach for the next 35 years at Drake University, Mount Mary College, University of Wisconsin, Ohio State University, American River Community College, and at the California State University, Sacramento, where she taught contemporary poetry and translation, creative writing, modernism, the art spirit, and 30 years of Homeric imagination. She twice received the award for meritorious teaching and the Woman of the Year award from the YWCA. Her publications include poems, book reviews, critical essays, and lyrical essays. The Arthur and Elizabeth Schlesinger Library of American Women at Harvard has requested her papers and letters for its permanent archive. Kathryn founded and is the president of the Readers of Homer, a nonprofit organization that produces all-night audience participation readings of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey in the U.S. and around the world. Including the Cove of Cybele in Chios, Greece, and the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. Let's give a warm welcome to Kathryn.
Is it good? Before I read any poems, I want to thank Sandy for her elegant introductions, and Bob Stanley for all the help, and everybody else who's helped, and Fred and Emil and everybody who's helped, and that's a lot of people. I have to tell you that the preparation for this reading has been one of the sweetest times of my life. It really has been warm and friendly and helpful and solid and just splendid. And I want to thank Richard Hansen, who's not here, but he did these beautiful little books. And I don't know how many of you managed to get them. I have no idea where they are or how many are left. But if you did get one, there is a poem of each of ours. And together they make this little hug of us with our arms around each other. And this has been a very loving, tender, and strong experience. I don't know whether I'm the toughest, but I'm certainly the oldest. And because of that, I have reread all my poems, because I thought if I was going to do a retrospective, I'd better turn. And so I reread all my poems that I could find, and pretty amazed actually at both the quantity and a certain kind of sturdiness of character, which I didn't think I had. I did not think I had. In fact, I've written many poems, and I read one today, in which I think I'm just fragmented. And it's such a reassuring thing to have things. I want to start with talking about the tough old gods. I have a wonderful quote from W.H. Auden, very simple. Stagger on, rejoicing. We all are doing it. I found that I had written the first poem I wrote when I was 8, little pencil quatrains, and it's amazingly about a tragedy in war-torn Greece. And those of you know I'm involved in horror, might find that as strange as I did. I'm not going to inflict on you. But I am going to go over different kinds of poems from different parts of my life. And I want to start by saying that there is such a thing as light verse. And I will start with 2 that I think are in that category. Called Wise Guys. Wise guys and Jack Mormons, spin doctors and low riders, wet noodles and skin twins. Dear Lord, what am I doing? Father figures, good brothers, weathermen and spooks, triple Leos and mothers, some genteel, lofty thinkers, outfielders and inner children, con artists and wistful warriors, high rollers and would-be shamans, buffed up delicados, a musician lost in meanness, a Heideggerian bandit, a meek Jacobian listener who limps to the samovar. Oh, what have I been doing? And this is just idiotic. It's idiotic, and it reminds me of Dylan Thomas's sentence, a phrasing, which is that the first line of a poem comes from God. The second line comes from the first line. And after that, you're on your own. Isn't that true? So this is just pure silliness. In January, the janissary asked the functionary at the sanctuary of the cemetery if it was customary and necessary or compulsory to write an obituary for the mortuary. He said it was. In February, the fiduciary, who was the local luminary for the regulatory of the bestiary and the aviary, of the migratory, went epistolary, even literary, and wrote at first an explanatory, complimentary, conciliatory, and exploratory note, but then found the vocabulary of an adversary, and signed an accusatory, recriminatory, admonitory letter to the judiciary of the repository of life on the promontory. He knew, this is not big, he knew in his pituitary. He knew in his pituitary that it was mostly monetary, but hoped it might be temporary, or maybe just subsidiary and secondary. But he was angry, very. Those of you who knew me at the university probably know that I did not like committee work. and I have the compulsion and habit of writing poems during the meetings. And I will read a few, they're very short and just great. The poem tried to reach me. It waited once all night. I'm hard to get. All night long, the bedclothes dragged me round like the Romans did Zenobia. When the linen chains released me, I dreamed of women's liberation and of freedom in America. Meanwhile, a slave, I wait beneath my pillow like tomorrow. Politeness comes at me like a white vampire, sucking out my fine red blood, replacing it with Pepsi Cola. Now I stand here, smiling, smiling. Now I move there, living, living. Shriek! Father, brother, hear me. Earth, let me in. And then a couple of poems about poetry. I've written an awful lot of poems about poetry, I found out. And it's a subject I love. I love to teach it, I love to think about it, I love to write it and hear it. And I mean this one very seriously. The poetry inside you is a chalice, and it's golden. Poetry. What else can chart the loss, the anvil and the thread, the hover of the wide wing span? This is about wanting to write but not doing it. Poem whose dark passage through the several thickets of my life, I sometimes, but not always, try to follow. Forgive my inattentions. Often I wake to know you once again are leading, familiar rustles, twigs breaking in the underbrush ahead, signal that I should listen to you better than I do. But I'm sleepy, or there is another dream that slips a little noose around my will and keeps me twisted. In midday, still, I hear your footsteps soft on peat. Bushwhacker, good trapper, I hear your rhythm as you will not stop your walking over, digging up of odd remains, or somewhat brilliant bone, and quick, mid-traffic, I dive in darkness to hurry, catch you, make amends and promises, to scout for arrowheads and taproots, bright shards of pot containers. And what is this? Alive? And how, oh how, to tell? I have a very dear friend in San Francisco named Sally Boyle, who just by chance sent me this week. And it is so much what I feel and love. It is from that genius collection of Robert Louis Stevenson's A Child's Garden of Verses that I think many of us sort of grew up on. And this amazes me. This is called To Any Reader. And it was hard to understand at 6, but it's very easy to understand. As from the house, your mother sees you playing around the garden trees. So you may see, if you will look through the windows of this book, another child, far, far away, and in another garden play. But do not think you can at all, by knocking on the window, call that child to hear you. He intent is all on his play business bent. He does not hear, he will not look, nor yet be lured out of this book. For long ago, the truth to say, he was brought up in one way. And it is but a child of air that lingers in the garden there. This is a poem that I didn't know I'd written, and I found it. I really didn't know. But I remember writing it, and when I was 25 or 26, my husband and our little boy moved to Scotland for a recovery kind of time because I had been so sick with meningitis. And I'm madly in love with Scotland. This is early, 1956. Many will not know. Remain with me days of this gentle love for Scotland, and days when I did not acknowledge the winds and belittling waves at all, but rolled in my foaming self, be purified. Sight the emblazoned images on a past that had not been, in a way it should never be. Forget the race and be with me. Hours of almost touch remain. Birds who befriended in dawn the reluctant moon, birds standing one-legged by distant shores, so nearly gone unseen, remain. Stand strong in my body's reach, with slight extending pressure, stay alive. Fight noisily for fish, you paunch pretentious gulls. Stay rowdy as you are, and do not sentimentalize yourself a noble grace. Oh, birds, remain with me, and beat familiarly your arching flight within my heart. High, lone wilderness, subjugating heath, oppress me with a stretch of bracken and bronze, endless in steps, endless in majesty, as I have seen. Burn a cruel fire of burned out amber on my feet. Gilt and glittering highlands, keep us in me. And little town of fishers, clinging to the hill in evening, doubled in the bay like oyster shells sprung open, aglow with early secrets, speaking lights like small potential pearls, remain with me. Undeceive me, blue swift wind, undeceive me, largely and in small. Release in me a large gesture, freeing weariness or shame. Conversely, when I spill too wide, then sending me this way. Tonight I walk a walking sound, past walls and a winter bay, and knowingly past storms I see in day, each one of them be calm. Divinity alarms me, if not to say defies me, as I in apparent boldness make my hollow walking sound. Only the wind of the things I know can intuit and tremble and hide. Appear in suggestions withdraw in a guise. So disdain me, wild, loose habited, remain with me, Scottish wind. I had the most wonderful address in the world there. The way they name houses, and the house was named Glendara, Pier Road, Argyllshire, Tarbert, Argyllshire, Scotland. So I have a couple of poems about interiority, and this one from 1960. I have a stone. I have fallen asleep in an unlikely place, in front of the sofa, not on it. She's like a stone, I hear them say, in voices that seem from my childhood. I am dense and pure interior. Perhaps my leg is a ledge, and foot just a useless concavity. It doesn't matter, for the circle I am contains me, the circle and the space. I hear every word they say. I am present without definition. Deep inside me, I stare widely. In Prague's steep ghetto, there is a cemetery, claustrophobic as despair, and vertical as pain, where broken tombstones jostle through the air, where tourists move upon their dying legs and wonder at the little stones, pebbles in fact, that dwell upon the slabs like daisies on the breast, laid there to signify the self. Meanwhile, I walk about inside me. I am architecture, pantheon, full of air and awesome, a huge and echoing vault. I try to think myself into particulars, to dissemble myself apart, but my spine holds like a keystone arch, and every part subsumes. They would have me disperse and crumble, but for once, I feel inevitable, enduring as a stone. I really don't want to read too long, so if I do, I timed it again, but you know, please. This refers to home, that my mother died 6 months before my husband, and my husband 6 months before my father. And this is a poem I wrote in 1978, The Old Men in Homer. The old men in Homer are beached up like bulky sea otters when bereft of their hero sons, when stranded amid their possessions. Concubines comprehend their own abducted futures when someone's victory is told. And we at our Protestant funerals, who grieve nonetheless like the ancients, unwillingly witness our prominence on the edge of all absence. My father is dying, my children, and your father is already dead. Hold my hand, for my bedroom is darkened and my staircase is scary with noises. Tuck me in, tell me stories, cool my fever, for I am little and you are learned. You think I'm the grown-up who know things. All I know is my father is dying, and the sun stares in slits through my fingers. And you, Father, internal, abandoned, how is it inside the exhaustion? Under ceilings of chemotherapy, do you wonder, a lost little brother? Are crickets there at twilight? Are you patriarch, husband, sailor, or child? My dear young fatherless three, so resilient in the taut skin of youth, you will not understand my lament, nor how I now feel I'm your sister, half aware of the graves of our fathers, half mature to the raw law of dying. You will not understand the nearness of death's face until my own death slams it into place. If you get restless, just make me. Oh, I got what my granddaughters see. Two of my granddaughters, this is in 2012, two of my granddaughters like to watch me sleep. At least they think I'm asleep. And I wonder what they see. White hair on white pillow, wrinkled arms, covering sheets. My little snort delights them. And they giggle and shush each other, thinking I do not know about it. I do not mind at all, though it is strange to be stared at. I just wonder what they see. The spooky dark flow of my longings, the poem giver inside me. is from a book I've been writing about a decade and a half, prose, but I want to read it because it's summer solstice. And it's a tiny bit of explanation that it is about memory and about the goddess named Mnemosyne, who is the goddess of memory. Quite a few years ago, I gave a lecture on memory, goddess or microchip. And so that kind of got me going in all of this. But what I'm doing here is I love myths, but I'm very interested in oral tradition and how they get to be myths. So in this case, I'm going backwards from a little quote, this is short, a little quote from Stephen Mitchell's translation of the Iliad, book 13. And I presume, I'm very pretentious, presume to sort of pretend to know how it got started. In very late spring, who used the leader, Zim is the visionary woman in Neanderthal tape. In very late springtime, Ohuyu seems always to know when the nights are the shortest. The other men are less sure. If the weather is fine, and especially if the moon is new, then that is the day when he takes his favorite, his very favorite, Zim, to the glade. He takes her as dusk is coming on. The glade is ringed around by the hugeness of the big trees, and the river, while not close, is close enough that the singing can be heard. Or who you take Zim by the hand, and in the earliest crepuscular light, he locates the perfect spot, takes off his pelt, clothing, and lies naked on the grass. He motions Zim to do the same, but she knows the ritual well, and will do so in her own time. She stands with her legs astride him, and lifts his arms towards the setting sun. And then she sings one of her songs. Yes, she sings to him of the yellow flower he had brought to her. His penis rises from him like the trees from the earth. Zim, for some reason, is never afraid. She sings so beautifully that I, Mnemosyne, must join in with her, for I know her song to the flower. She cannot hear me singing with her, and she knows that the twilight could easily be dangerous. And it is. In nearby woods, many of the animals have gathered. At least that's how the story goes. And as Zim finishes her song and pulls off her well-worn robe, she stands there naked above the leader. Even the mighty mammoth elephant stays still, though the eyes of all the beasts are glowing like fireflies in the onrushing evening, like embers. Ohuyu pulls her down onto him and the world turns beneath them. When Ohuyu moans out and shouts, amazingly, so the story goes, even the wildest of the forest creatures, those with the sharpest teeth, bow their heads and wait for Zim to moan as well. They stand in a quiet ring, shoulder to shoulder, and barely move, though the clan thinks that both Zim and Ohuyu know they're there. On the finest of these twilights, the couple lie together as the moon, either new or full, clears the top of the trees. The story goes that perhaps one of the clan dared to watch, though the animals did growl at him, and the Peninsula became the stuff of legend. And these last lines are from Stephen Mitchell's story, book 13. And beneath the shining earth burst forth the spring flowers, dewy clover and crocus and hyacinth, thick and soft, which lifted them off the ground. They lay there, concealed in a beautiful golden cloud, and from it, dewdrops fell glistening all around them.
Well, let's give another round for Kathryn.
Well, our
final reader this afternoon is Viola Weinberg, who actually is the one who got this all started. I decided to invite a few friends. Viola Weinberg, with Dennis Schmitz, served as the Sacramento's first poet laureate from 2000 to 2002. She has published 5 books of poetry and a text on child abuse, including Scrambled Clams and Bananas, The Some Complexities of the Humble Field, Letters to Pablo Neruda, and So. Viola's work has appeared in numerous anthologies, journals, newspapers, magazines, and publications. And in 2010, on several Sacramento RT buses, her collaboration with artist Mario Uribe resulted in the only Poets on Board play cards. Her work has been an integral part of plays and musical compositions, even a senior citizen tap dance troupe. In 2008, she was named the Glenna Luce Distinguished Poet at the 25th Annual Poetry Festival in San Luis Obispo. She also the recipient of the Mayor and Supervisors Award for the Arts in Sacramento. Viola taught for 3 years at CSU Sacramento, where she co-founded Women's Studies. She's known for a long-running radio show called Women Waves on KZAP, and as a reporter and news director of KZAP. Among those she interviewed are Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford, Dolly Parton, Phoebe Snow, and the first Western woman to climb Mount Everest. Viola went on to work at numerous Bay Area radio stations and publications, including Mother Jones Magazine, where she was the founding director of the International Fund for Documentary Photography, now housed in the Leica Foundation. For several years, she served in a brain trust for the CS Fund on issues related to media, public accountability, and the environment. She's now retired, living in rural Sonoma County with her husband, photographer Peter Spencer, and writes in a yurt. Let's give a warm welcome to Viola Weinberg.
I'm thrilled. The only question I have for you, are you tough enough? Yeah. My 3 friends and I have been through it all, and I want you to know there is nothing better, nothing more lifelong than love and friendship. I hope you had your share. Saying that, I could put on my glasses. In our home, we've had cancer. This first piece I want to read is I wrote during my husband's cancer. But all of a sudden, your life is going on, you think everything is fine, and then suddenly you realize everything changed. Cooling Normandy. It brushes her cheek in this chamber, cooling, strangely deoxygenated, with the taste of a sacred, secret bitters. Where does it come from, this cooling Normandy? There is no choice but to inhale. It's the only breath we'll have this afternoon. The worn, tiled floors should be waxed in this place. They should keep their appointments prompt in this place. Other people like you are in those chairs, waiting, lolling like damaged dolls, each with one eye up. I take a picture, but they don't care. They never once look up. Cool in Normandy. Now you ask yourself, now you let it crawl all over you as they hit your vein. They ask, would you prefer water? And you decline because you prefer cool in Normandy. Cool in Normandy, is it a drug in a bag or a woman in a white coat with a caliber? You're the drumming love in this cool universe. You are the heart-beating white hole of existence. You will survive because you are enormously cool. It always makes my heart beat. You know, sometimes the biggest things are the smallest things. And one day I took a little vacation from all the big things. Today, I will only attend to the small things. The tiny basil flowers, for instance, that I will pinch back for the sake of the plant. The little carrots, deliciously ready, but very short. The one beet that stands alone in its bed, bursting from the soil, red and bleeding. That last French radish, which has gotten rather large but can still be sliced into and set in a water bath to crisp. Or the dead heads of carnations on a plant that once looked like an explosion of red paint. My plans involve the garden shears and clippers, growing gamey now from pruning sappy limbs, or watching the little dog who lies in the sun, still as a sleeping Buddha, or the pea shoots, trying so hard to latch on to the old willow teepee, or the little figlets, still shapeless and vague, but surely ready to be counted, their perfume preceding their womanly bodies, their foaming seed. I will rediscover the lost glove with a patch, and measure the cucumbers just set in a row. I will not think about things so big they are unimaginable. Death, dearth, why some are loved and some are not. I will continue my subtle movements, small and tender, as if they were cilia in the ear of a thirsty honeybee. In this small world, I shall gather, cut, water, and harvest entire life cycles of their little universe of mulch and dirt. I will hum a modest tune and clip the ragged time. No one will be safe. There is no winter's bell to ring. Just the soft breeze with an insinuation of the ocean. A small planet of things to tend. One sleepy clover at a time. I didn't know that tarantulas have a migration until I got caught in one. I should say we got caught in New Mexico. This is called Tarantella. A black velveteen river of tarantula come down the Valle Grande. One after another, the road eclipsed, cracking on our tires like eggs. Flying at the vents and smacking little metal doors, the deer got there on the march, and we were in their way as they tumbled toward us, creeping, a mob on a dark road, in a column on the asphalt as we migrated bravely against the black tide. Crunch and dive, a bad dream, with a foil of little freaky creatures, their insect fur and all their bright eyes rimmed in brash sun, headed south with their egg sacs and twitching limbs of God, like Scorsese's eyebrows jumping in a night. Disturbed me, stomach turning, we stubbornly drove toward the grotesque as they whirled, wheels of hairy little tiny legs, pick-clacking against the windshield and bumpers. The headlights and truck bed we shouldered on. We became angry. We sped for 15 minutes in shivering tarnation until we passed out of the storm. The sandy road ahead, clean as a beach. And we were quieted. But even now, just the thought of it, the madness of it, will possess a stray hair to tickle me to death. I had a rather wonderful set of parents. Some of you know them or knew them. But the other day I had such a flash of my father and his brother, both long departed here. And it was their smell. And I read this many times. The smell is the last thing to go and the first thing that comes. And so there it is, the smell, the scent. Sometimes when I stand on the summer porch and close my eyes, I can smell them, the brothers side by side, working to enclose the deck and make it plumb and proper. My mother in the house feeling sad that the deck would be gone after a couple of years of her being able to sip tea and overlook the garden in her summer hat in the closet where I found it years later, unused and abandoned. While the close roof and its badly varnished ceiling declined down to the cabinets, full of the stuff, the smell of brothers sweating and drinking beer as they measured and sawed, stubby little pencils locked behind their big ears, talking too loudly for her comfort, her slipper chair rudely pushed to the corner. Everything out there smelling like a mill of sawdust. Ever after, even now, after all these years later, I smell the beginnings of her surrender. 50 years or more in the making. Inside, in her own cabinets, gleaming with relics of a big, big life all over the world, she shut the curtains and left the men to their casual deconstruction in the name of cardboard boxes that had to go somewhere out of the rain. It's pretty apparent from my entrance to the stage that I struggle physically every day. And this is a poem about my first walk to the corner after a long, long time. And I have a lot of hardware on the gal, you know, that makes you late in your airplane. This is the day of days. Yes, walk to the corner. Once was, I walked across countries, down steep steps in secret cities, around statues and great monuments, and goals on a great horizon, more distant than you can possibly now fathom. Yes, walk to the corner. It seems so far as I limped along. With this contraption, just do it and find your new world right around a bend. Your track of glory just yards away. Just take the first steps. These spurs of bravery will launch you. Yes, just walk to the corner. Astound yourself and let your rods and screws ring like bells and bang like hammers on that fragile, jigging skeleton that lurches. A friend dreamt that I ran a marathon in Paris wheeling a chair through the Odeon. This is bigger, harder, longer, more. Yes, walk to the corner and find your courage. Your new world launches like a ship they said would sink. Lunges forward, rambling, all jabby and stroppy. Rise up on the locker, straighten your spine. Be proud that you have been given this life. Valor rushes through you. You will arrive. Thank you, Victoria. This is a poem that's going to appear in Poetic Diversity, which is the Litzing of LA. And if you haven't checked it out before, you really should. It's wonderful. It has a huge readership of about 300,000 people. And so I was pretty excited that I got into this. And I have 3 poems that are going on. You know, everyone has grief in their life, and you deal with it differently. Some people tear their clothes and cry and beat their heads on the floor. Some people never say a word. And I don't know, I'm somewhere in between. You know, in the last 2 years I've learned how to cry. Boy, have I ever. And it's been a wonderful thing for me, actually. But I once went to a Day of the Dead ceremony in Mexico, and I gotta say, these Mexican Day of the Dead is the best grieving I have ever seen. So this poem is called Down at the Mexican Cemetery. Down at the Mexican cemetery, they are throwing a party with bass guitars everywhere in the Mexican cemetery. Tombs lined with the lost and the living. Acrobats under a disco lamp throw stars. While widows rock, mad from grief 20 years now, rock on the spindle of their folding chairs, and sing like a shadow in the blue light, huddled and smoking. They languish in the heavily scented imagination of endless rafts of sugar skulls. By this virtue, I should be standing in the garden tonight, candles lit on a sunflower bed in a deep row. I should be out there tonight with my anger and romance, in love and tatter. I should be howling at the moon, growling, breaking my fountain pen on the ground, tearing the last of the blackened giants of Russia and African possum faces from her grip. There in the air, her grip. I should be smoking a cigar in a negligee and talking to the sunflowers. Dissolute, holding a scotch and milk, but instead, knocking back from the unspeakable madness I can't stop talking about, waiting for a night to fall on the stoop of my shoulders, a hoarfrost, wounded, hateful and angry, wishing for all I have for a mariachi band in the summer night. Blue as the grieving dresses of widows, dignified street mutts poised on the monuments, the women drunk with pain and fury, gone, all gone, the stars whirling, each one a spent soul, drunk as skunks and smoking like a bonfire. This is such a wonderful, unruly crowd. I really enjoyed all of it. I enjoyed my sister tough old broads, I have to say. I like what Kathryn said about our preparations for this reading. This is some of the most wonderful fun I've ever had, and thank you all for that. Sometimes the best things happen when you're absolutely alone. This poem is for Ed Hagen. It's called Beautiful Solitude. There is no romance as rightful as that found unbound, walking in a strange city in ringing silence. There is no love greater than a poet falling in love with a place where no one speaks her language and it's raining. I know the sultry nights, the marbled stones, the absence of dreaming in beautiful solitude, the intoxication of gas lights breathing evenly along a small street off the avenue where you have penned a word with blood-red lipstick on a matchbook that was taken from the hand of a drunken Russian sailor in a tiny little bar called Le Cave, where the vodka flows and everyone is laughing and living and dying in the same breathless moment. You don't feel beautiful as much as wondrous and invincible. I know the sense of being utterly alone, as if in a womb, impenetrable, an unflinchable tower of the heart pulsing in you. A city that was always waiting for you. As if this city is your true mother and not that poseur you remember from a spanking. This place never grows old in your imagination, or even in a waking hour when the spirit of all you wished for as a girl is faded, and a dirty floor calls your name, or when dinner, banal and inconsequential, is still uncooked. Trust me, this romance will outlast the miasmic linoleum of tattered wishing. Although, by its very nature, it is mysteriously shellacked by desire. Because this city, this poem of your nature, this is more honest than any impetuous promise or bond. And this, ma chérie, is fact. men usually correct. This is the poem that's in the little book. Barely Used Beds. Thank you, Alice Anderson, for this idea. I made a posting on Facebook. I'm from a state where it's not illegal to sell used beds. And so you'll be driving along the highway, you'll see used beds. Somewhat used beds. Barely used beds. There it is, my poem title. Barely used beds. I don't like beds, or sleeper naps, or a moment with closed eyes. I like barely used beds with a light in the hall, the teapot close at night. I like silence. I like thoughts that whiff down the chamber to be bored and calm on a notepad. I like barely used beds where long and long dreams evaporate, and I barely use these dreams. I like barely used beds covered in white linens with a small dip on the left, a memory of trees, snow, and snakes. This poem was published in Hine many years ago, and I think of it as my signature poem. It happened that I had an experience in France many years ago where I suddenly realized you don't have to be miserable to be an artist. You can actually be elated and be an artist. And that's what this is about. Monet's kitchen. Come down here, Monet. Come down here now, my little cabbage. It is morning and light is splashing on sparkling tiles. The copper pans are shimmering solar jewels. Come down here, Monet, my strong-eyed darling. I'll steam your chocolate and spread the bread with clouds of butter and honey. Come down here, Monet. Come down here right now. My sweet billy goat, I'll splay my legs across the cook's blue table. Come down here, Monet, before the servants take their station, beating bread dough and flour grenades. Come down here, Monet, my hungry child, and bathe with me in the violet blaze of geranium and iris. Come down here, Monet. Come down here now. The room is trembling with steaming pots on a cantankerous wood stove. Come down here, Monet, my darling farmer, while spring flings itself through open windows and checkered curtains wave. Come down here, Monet. Come down here immediately and see the small bird flying against the blue plane of the high, clean ceiling. Come down here, Monet. Come down if you value your reputation as an artist. Come down here and bring your taste for redheads and roses and blue and yellow hues. Come down here, Monet. I am crushing the peppermint for your first cup of tea and chasing hummingbirds with the skirts of my apron. Come down here, Monet, my slice of ginger. I am arranging flowers to the grotto above the deep wooden sink. Come down here, Monet, in your blue silk robe. Come down hungry and thirsty. Let your eyes weep in the light. Let the sun fall on your face. Come down here, Monet. I'm boiling your eggs and cutting your peaches with pearl-handled knives that flash with my wrist. Come down here, Monet, my neglect in the garden. Come down here and please do it quickly. Come down here, Monet, and bring your paints and that urgent palette. Come down here, Monet. I am half naked and barefoot in the hot part of your house. Come down here, Monet. The pomegranate of a new day is thick in both of my hands. Come down here, Monet, before the light changes and the flowers fade. Come down here, Monet, before the season turns and the milkman arrives. Come down here, Monet. The water lilies are full and my hair is tangled. Come down here, Monet. Let the lilacs precede you. Let the pomegranates deceive you. Come down here, Monet, and bring blue silk ribbons for the big, healthy girl in the kitchen. Come down here, Monet. Ride hard and ride fast. Don't scare the horses. Come down here, Monet. My heart is beating like a drum with a skin made of hours. Come down here, Monet, and let's die full of light in a chamber of flowers.
like to have another round of applause.